These are the streets of Naypyidaw, Myanmar's purpose-built administrative capital. And as you can see, something feels off. It feels more like a ghost town than it does the capital of a country with 50 million inhabitants. And as you'll soon learn, this city's emptiness is the result of a deeper motive. Something so sinister, it's hard to believe. You see, much like the eerie atmosphere radiating from its streets, its origins and purpose and even how it was built are shrouded in mystery. The one thing we do know for certain is that it was designed and constructed in the early 2000s under the leadership of Myanmar's military dictator at the time, General Sway. And on the 6th of November 2005, the regime announced that the capital would be relocated overnight from the country's largest city, Yangon, to a mysterious and at that time anonymous city in the middle of nowhere. To much confusion among the population. Clarity came 5 months later, on the 27th of March 2006, when the city received its official name, Naypyidaw, translating roughly to Seat of the Kings, a name that makes perfect sense once you understand the true purpose of this capital and the people who run this country. So, why did the rulers of Myanmar suddenly change the country's capital? Well, we do have a few official explanations as to why the country was relocating its capital, all of which can be disputed with some common sense. One of these explanations was that the old capital of Yangon was becoming too unsustainable due to overpopulation and traffic jams. But looking at the population density and population growth in the city, it's not even on the top 50 list of the world's most densely populated cities. So having a high population density doesn't really justify relocating the capital city, otherwise we would have seen these other countries with high population densities do this as well. Another explanation given was that the country needed a more centrally located capital that would make administration of the huge and vastly diverse country more effective. Which didn't really make sense, because why would you move away from a big city located near the ocean that gives ease of access for people and goods to move freely? And well, as we shall now see, this ease of access was the main problem, as the true and deeper motive behind this relocation was a product of the dictator's paranoia. But why was he paranoid? Well, he was scared of popular uprisings and a potential foreign invasion. The strongmen of Myanmar were apparently becoming increasingly concerned about the possibility of a US amphibious invasion aimed at the port city of Yangon, as well as the fear of a domestic revolution overthrowing them. But why would the US and Myanmar's people be interested in overthrowing the sitting rulers? Well, it has to do with Myanmar's incredibly disturbing history. You see, Myanmar was a British colony that got its independence in 1948, but since 1962 it has been continuously ruled by a military government, with a brief break during the period between 2015 and 2021. As a result, the military plays an exceedingly important role in the country's politics and has been known for its repressive tactics and its ruthlessness in its efforts to control the politics and the society. Keep this in mind, because this is where the video takes a dark turn. See, the military government, as well as their former prime minister, are responsible for the Rohingya genocide. That is the series of ongoing persecutions and killings of the Muslim Rohingya people, an ethnic minority in the country. This genocide has consisted of 2 phases, the first of which took place from October 2016 to January 2017, under the command of Aung San Suu Kyi, the former prime minister, who had her Nobel Peace Prize taken away from her for obvious reasons. The second phase has taken place since August of 2017 and is still ongoing. This crisis has forced over 1 million Rohingya to flee the country. Most have fled to Bangladesh, while others escaped to India, Malaysia, Thailand and other parts of South and Southeast Asia, where they continue to face persecution. The United States, United Kingdom and other countries refer to these events as, quote, ethnic cleansing. It's truly messed up and has been going on since the 70s. It's also a very complicated issue, and I'm not currently informed enough about this to explain it in detail, from all angles and present all the facts, so please take what I've said with a grain of salt. What's clear though is that the military government built a capital far away from everything, and it could be to distance themselves from the public. Which brings us back to this new capital, because if you look at a map of Myanmar, you'll see that Naypyidaw is located here in the middle of nowhere, 320 kilometers from the social and economic center of the country and former capital Yangon. Basically, to get from here, the old capital and economic center of the country, to here, you need about 5 hours. Now, given that any uprising is bound to begin and spread from Yangon, it would be fair to say that this isolation made the generals feel much safer. And this idea that the city acts as a fortification to shelter the junta, another word for military government, from any potential domestic and foreign enemies is even more evident if you take a look at the layout of the city, which is to say the least peculiar, as it looks weird and oddly inconsistent. Everything in the city is evocative of the planners' aim to separate and insulate the centers of power. You see, the city is divided into strictly delineated zones. First, we have the administrative zone where the government buildings are located, all of which are identical in their appearance for some reason, done to either confuse the enemy or just lack of creativity, I don't know. Then there's this vast parliamentary complex consisting of 31 buildings with a moat running around it and iron bridges connecting its huge iron gates with the rest of the city. And then we of course have a presidential palace with 100 rooms that is also surrounded by a moat. So it's clear they seriously don't want people to come in here. Moving away from the administrative zone, however, you'll reach the residential zone where the common people of the city reside. Now, the residential zone also has its fair share of peculiarities. The houses in it are allocated according to jobs and marital status of the residents. Not only that, but they are also color-coded accordingly. To the southeast of this residential zone there is a hotel zone, which is pretty self-explanatory, and then a diplomatic zone that hosts the foreign embassies. And then in the northeastern side there is the military zone. This is where the houses of high-ranking military officials are hosted in an area restricted to the public. An urban legend, which sounds quite plausible to be honest, has it that this zone is full of bunkers and tunnels built with the advice of North Korean technicians. See, one of the things with Myanmar's junta was that it had apparently developed close ties with North Korea, but that's a topic for another video. Let me know if you want to see that. And while we are on a sidetrack anyway, do you remember the 20-lane boulevard from the beginning of the video? Well, another rumor has it that it was made to enable an aircraft landing in case the junta needed a quick escape route. Kinda crazy, right? Anyway, the whole point here is that we have a city that has been apparently designed with one goal in mind: segregation. Inhabitants are to be isolated from the centers of power and foreigners are to be separated from ordinary people. The whole city seems to be an exercise on how spatial arrangements can interfere with and obstruct democracy. Or, as a commentator called it, the city is a manifestation of dictatorship by cartography. And after what we just saw, it cannot be denied that the symbolisms of the buildings and the arrangements are strong. So it's clear why Naypyidaw is almost empty. It's because in a sense, it might not even classify as a proper city, even though it's Myanmar's capital, as it didn't develop organically through centuries of accumulated economic activity, as is the case for normal cities. It can also be argued that its sole purpose was to keep the people at a safe distance from the regime's centers of power. And apart from the administration and the ecosystem forming around it, the city appears to feature no other significant sources of economic activity. This means Naypyidaw was built and conceived representing a specific vision and interpretation of Myanmar. Its authoritarian roots are visible. In this sense, it would be fair to say that the fate of the city is intertwined with the politics of the country. During the 2010s, Myanmar had slowly started opening up to the world, taking steps towards building and establishing a democracy, and in an environment more open to dialogue, the preconceived notions about what the city represents and where it is headed were challenged and rethought. The segregation and inaccessibility entrenched as the defining features of the city appeared to be fading away. For a time, the city was welcoming foreign delegations, ambassadors, tourists, hosting conferences, and the social life was flourishing. This did, however, come to an abrupt end on the 1st of February 2021 when the military yet again grabbed the power. Now the country is under the threat of a civil war and the future doesn't look great. One thing is for certain though, a return to democracy would probably signify a bright future for the city and the country. But that's it for this video. If you liked it, please consider subscribing. I've noticed that a lot of my viewers seem to forget to subscribe. So if you like my videos, it's a surefire way to make sure you don't miss any in the future. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one.